Outriders WorldSlayer comes out tomorrow, and I'm here to share with you my first impressions after playing about 40 hours on PC. Nothing in this video is going to contain any story spoilers or endgame spoilers, but I am going to talk about the structure of endgame, including mechanics and some of the legendary loot. Basically, anything that has already been covered by the official Outriders channel themselves. We're going to talk about the campaign, endgame, the new loot, and the new systems in that order. Starting with the campaign, over the next week, I'll be sharing my raw campaign playthrough with Moxie and Chadley, so if you're interested in multiplayer performance, definitely keep an eye out for that. The WorldSlayer campaign was about 2 hours for our group, and we had full legendary gear and builds and everything from the base game. If you go into WorldSlayer with unoptimized gear or utilize the level 30 skip and end up with all blue gear, it will definitely take you a bit longer. I guess about 4 hours or so, but I'm not sure. Although I was very disappointed in the WorldSlayer campaign length, the maps looked amazing and the bosses were so cool and intimidating. I really wish that we saw more of the campaign mini bosses in the endgame trial of Tratar. The major issue for us for the campaign, speaking from a group of the three of us that are not really super into the lore of it all, there were so many cutscenes, a lot of cutscenes, a lot of loading screen to cutscene to loading screen to fade to black to, etc. You know the drill. Of course, my unedited gameplay is going to be going up this week, so keep an eye out for that. Speaking of endgame, the Trial of Tratar is the other half of WorldSlayer content that I have come to know quite well over the last week. As Outriders Ambassadors, some of my friends and I were able to experience the trial in a group as well as do it solo, and as of this recording, I'm Apocalypse Tier 33, and I've got a lot to say about the new endgame activity. If you want to see unedited gameplay of endgame, make sure you come over and check out twitch.tv/abbyhour. I'll be streaming over there tomorrow at noon Eastern time, and we're going to be playing all day so you can see what the endgame looks like. You can see all the loot, you can ask me all the questions, and you can also score some in-game loot drops courtesy of Twitch drops. So come on over there and check it out. Alright, let's get one thing clear straight away. Trial of Tratar is not random. I don't know how this rumor started in the community, but everybody seems to think the rooms change or the rooms are random. There's one map. There's paths to different encounters that you can go on, but once you know all the map and all the rooms, that's it. You pick which rooms you want to go to. There are certain rooms that you have to go to progress. The other rooms, like the troves, have targeted loot chests at the end. They are always the same targeted loot. So the boot room at the beginning on the right is always the boot room in the beginning on the right. Some areas are just additional arenas, which have pretty cool bosses and some unique fights, which I thought was really cool, but a lot of times you don't go to those optional side rooms. You just go straight ahead because it's almost more efficient for the XP. So hopefully they will, make adjustments there in the future. However, you always have to fight the same bosses to complete the trial. You always have to go through certain rooms. Certain ones are mandatory. The other ones are optional, but everything's always the same. I just wanted to get that clear to you guys because I don't want people to be disappointed when this game comes out, because that is one of the things. And I mean, you might still be disappointed, but I wanted to let you know before the game comes out and you can make your decision that way. But this can get very repetitive as you progress through the new difficulty system, because this new system is replacing your world tier and your challenge tier. It basically combines it all into Apocalypse tier so that your world is Apocalypse level, your trial is Apocalypse, your expedition, everything is Apocalypse tier, which is nice that it kind of combines it all into one. And you level up that Apocalypse tier with XP, so no longer doing expeditions to raise your challenge tier, and each level up requires more and more XP. We finished the story, the campaign, at Apocalypse tier 18. I was using my Techno that was already CT15 prior to WorldSlayer, and after about 40 hours of straight endgame grinding in trials and expeditions, and I did venture out to see if any other ways like side missions or anything was more lucrative, but it wasn't. Trials is pretty much the most lucrative way to level up your Apocalypse tier and get the best loot. We have now reached Apocalypse tier 33. As of this recording of Apocalypse tier 33, and it is moving at a snail's pace. I would expect it to take another week and a half at least of grinding 8 hours a day in order to get to Apocalypse tier 40. We'll see when I actually hit it, if I do actually hit it, but it takes a lot of time invested. Most players are not going to reach Apocalypse tier 40. They're not going to reach max. And it takes a lot of materials. It takes a lot of material costs to level up your gear as you go. So if you don't get lucky and you don't get these new legendary pieces, like all you Devastators out there, how many times or how long did it take you to grind for a Seismic Commander helmet? Well, imagine if every few tiers you had to grind for another helmet because you needed the additional anomaly power and armor, and you needed that piece of gear leveled up. And there's also the RNG factor of the Apocalypse gear, which I love. The Apocalypse gear, I love the 3 mods. It's amazing. I love the addition of it. It makes us feel so powerful, and it gives an RNG element to it, to grinding it, but we'll talk more about that in the loot section. However, you also have to get lucky in getting that Seismic Commander helmet with the Apocalypse tier mod that you wanted, right? So you see how this kind of grind to 40 gets a little bit much. So keep that in mind when you consider the DLC, the cost per time invested. A lot of it is just kind of artificial grind at the end, grinding up these Apocalypse tiers, and there's really no reason for it, in my opinion. It could have been Apocalypse tier 20. I feel like Apocalypse tier 25 could have been a good kind of middle ground, because we hit that within the first 3 days, I think. So this is one thing I hope they fix after launch. I hope they quadruple the amount of XP that you can get. Of course, you could level up your Apocalypse tier through the campaign, the base game, or expeditions, but the XP gained is slightly lower and the loot is a lot worse. So you see blue gear in Apocalypse tier 33 expeditions, which is really bad. I'm never going to use blue gear because guess what? You can't get Apocalypse tier blue gear. So I can't even level up the rarity of that blue gear and then use it. Of course, you could use non-Apocalypse stuff, but once you've had a taste of those 3 mods, it's hard to go back. I really hope the rewards outside the trial are adjusted so that the expeditions are still relevant for farming loot. They are, however, still relevant for farming drop pod resources, which you will want to re-roll Tiago's stash and also to level up. You might pick 1 or 2 god rolled items and then use those to kind of come with you through the levels. Speaking of loot, I've always said Outriders does the loot chase really well, and in WorldSlayer, that's no exception. There are some awesome new gear sets and really cool weapons. Of course, there are some that are better than others, and I'm sure some new metas are going to emerge, but the weapon and gear mods in WorldSlayer are on a whole new level. Plus, my Techno turret build is so fun to play, and it is super strong. Really, really strong. The new Apocalypse or rarity loot and the 3rd mod slot makes the loot grind really satisfying. It's enough RNG to make you work for it, but this gear drops pretty regularly, especially as you climb in the Apocalypse tiers. So you always find something to use as you kind of make your way through those Apocalypse tiers. The only exceptions are some of the more rare legendary gear set items. Like I've been searching for my turret gear sets helmet for about 5 or 6 Apocalypse tier levels, and I got so down bad with it that I just had to use a separate helmet and use the gloves for my set, even though those are max health. So it is a bit of a grind, but it's really exciting when you get a piece that has that 3rd mod that you really, really wanted, and it's in that 3rd mod slot. Also, let me know in the comments down below what type of loot videos you guys want to see first. Do you want to see best weapon mods or a gear set showcase for Techno? Let me know down in the comments. I don't want to spoil it too much, so I'm going to leave the loot at that and let you guys discover the rest, but it's been fun farming for all the new loot, albeit a bit repetitive through the trial of Tratar. Lastly, let's talk about the new endgame level systems. So let's talk about the packs, tree points, and your ascension levels. These are 2 things that they've since added to the game with WorldSlayer. I really like the way of progressing this at endgame versus just giving us more skill points. I think if they gave us more skill points, we would have seen a lot more similar builds and kind of the meta of just set it and forget it type skill tree would form. However, right now it's been fun kind of experimenting with different ways now that they've boosted some of the anomaly power, but I'll get into that with my build video. But the PAX tree and the ascension levels are really impactful, and in the PAX tree nodes, each path has a really different playstyle. So as you can see with Techno here, I'm going into lethal devices, which is very strong, by the way, inflicting toxic, etc. And we're going down this path. This is more of a toxic status effect path, but there's also paths down here where it's going to give you healing, and you're going to be able to help your teammates with health regen, or you're able to affect the cooldown of your skills. It's actually really powerful if you use a lot of ordnance skills. This one might be for you, or turrets. So there's a lot of different ways to kind of go down these trees, which I really love. You could even do like 2 of the front ones instead of going all the way down. So there's going to be a lot of variety here. I think that some are always going to be kind of meta. This lethal devices is absolutely insane. 10% more damage to enemies for every status inflicted is absolutely insane. So there's definitely going to be meta, but I really like these trees instead of having more points for our original tree. In comparison, ascension levels are more minor bonuses to your character stats, and they max out at 200. So you're going to be putting 10 into each of these stats. You can't really front load any specific ones. You just pick them as you get more points, and you just put points into there. You can also reset the branch or reset the entire tree whenever you want. Same with PAX points. So that allows you to have a lot of experimentation and see what you like and really have more flexibility with it. Keep in mind too that even though I'm Apocalypse tier 33, my ascension level is 78. So I'm probably going to hit 200 on or before I hit Apocalypse tier 40. It seems like they kind of set them up where they would hit it almost at the same time, but we'll see. But I think both of these systems are really great additions to Outriders. Overall, I liked playing WorldSlayer, but I was disappointed in the amount of content for the price. A 2-hour story and then 40 hours grinding the same 20-minute trial over and over to reach max level gets a little bit repetitive. I really hope they make changes to the Apocalypse tier XP system and give incentive to running expeditions or even the campaign to add variety to the endgame grind. My number one aspirational hope would be that they would add more procedurally generated rooms and randomizers to the trial, but I don't see that really happening anytime soon anyway. As always, remember that Outriders is a full package. No live service, time-gated updates, or season pass, so what you see is what you get. I believe that we're probably going to see a few patches in the coming months from them, and hopefully they'll address some of the concerns that I have. But until then, I'll be working on perfecting my Techno's turret build as I make my way to Apocalypse tier 40.